On the 30th of May, Donald Trump became the first US president to ever be convicted of a federal crime post being in office, and he's the first ex-president of the USA to ever be convicted. And this story has completely blown up over the internet. Everybody's talking about it, regardless of whether you're from the US, the UK, or anywhere else in the world. But one person who's getting absolutely ridiculed online at the moment for their verdict on the situation is Piers Morgan. Now, Piers Morgan has been ridiculed for the response to Donald Trump's guilty verdicts, being quoted as saying, "Are you serious?" Okay, so Piers Morgan has leapt to the defense of Donald Trump after he became the first criminally convicted US president in history. And then this is just kind of a little overview of what happened. And then stars including Robert De Niro, Barbara Streisand, and Stephen King have all responded to the news, making their happiness known over the verdict of the immediate aftermath. But one person who is not impressed with the outcome is broadcaster Piers Morgan. Shortly after the verdict was revealed, Morgan, who last interviewed Trump in 2022, wrote on X, quote, "This is a sad day. This is sad, shameful, and ridiculous day for America. To drag a former president who is running for president again through criminal courts over something so trivial feels like a massive overreach and an incredibly divisive, and obviously politically partisan action." So his statements on Twitter have been absolutely ridiculed, like I've said, because people, well, the world is quite divided on this. Trump supporters are, of course, very anti this decision, and then anyone who's ever been against Trump, all the Republicans, have backed the decision. But yesterday, at the time of recording, Piers Morgan did upload a video to his YouTube channel saying he's just a big fat liar. Donald Trump guilty Piers Morgan debate. And it's over an hour long, so I'm not going to use the entire thing, but we're going to take a look at a few of the more interesting points that were made within this. Starting off with Piers' verdict that he states outright within the first few minutes of this episode.
Well, Trump is a convicted felon. Those are the words you're going to hear over and over again between now and November's election. He's the first former president in American history to be criminally convicted. He may soon be the first sitting president in American history with a criminal conviction, in no small part because of what happened last night. Trump's enemies were, of course, quick to dance on his legal grave.
Miracle is too strong a word, but a day for celebration.
Your defense was weak because you're weak. They had no argument because there is no argument. You were too scared to testify because you knew Donald. You know. You're guilty. Guilty as sin.
It is heating up in this space, isn't it? It is spicy right now.
Donald Trump is a felon. Donald Trump is a criminal. Donald Trump may not vote for himself. Donald Trump may not own a gun.
Thank you. Is anything going on today?
Well, they might live to regret all this glee. To an outsider looking in, this case was a mess. The star witness, Michael Cohen, admitted stealing thousands of dollars from a Trump organization during his testimony, a bigger offense than the one that Trump was on trial for. Cohen himself is a convicted felon. His compulsive lies are a matter of public record. But the fact is that Trump was found guilty on all counts by a jury of his peers, and now America has to face up to the consequences. And the biggest casualty may be public faith in their judicial system. This time, many people will agree with the former president's own assessment.
I mean, that's a hot take in itself because, I mean, the whole country is divided from what I can tell. There is literally no grey area in this where people sit neutral in America. It is literally, you are pro-Trump or you are anti-Trump. And literally right now, these people are at war with one another over this whole case. He's yet to be sentenced. I believe that comes on July the 11th. But after the sentencing, it'll be very, very interesting to see how things pan out on the build-up to the presidential election.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration.
Well, Donald Trump's unfounded election denials undermine the American people's faith in the democratic process, something I've criticised him to his face for. But the hush money trial will be no different in the scale of its impact on the public's trust in their institutions, and I suspect it'll be no less damaging. This verdict doesn't show that everyone's equal under the law, as many are now arguing. It shows that anybody, even a former president, can be convicted for a relatively trivial offence if the full weight of the establishment is brought to bear against them. The prosecution had to perform judicial gymnastics just to make this a felony case. The district attorney, Alvin Bragg, is a card-carrying Democrat who's made no secret of his feelings about Donald Trump or his desire to nail him legally.
This is a hot take from Piers Morgan. This is a very hot take, and I can see why people are they're very up in arms about it, because this is very opinionated and a little bit less factual, so that's hot.
And ask yourself this: would any other businessman have found themselves in court on felony charges for this? If the answer is no, then self-evidently not everyone is equal under the law. This could open the legal floodgates to political prosecutions motivated by revenge and spite, and plenty of the Democrats now celebrating could soon find the prison boot ends up on the other foot. I never thought I'd live to see an American president convicted on felony charges. It's an extraordinary moment in modern history. But I always imagined if it did happen, then the case might be about something like a deadly illegal war, an act of treason, or corruption on a grand scale. In the end, it was nothing like that. It was a tawdry overreach designed to humiliate and discredit a political leader involving a payoff to a porn star for an alleged one-night stand 18 years ago.
I mean, like, I understand where Piers is coming from. Like, his idea is that if you're going to convict an ex-president or a soon-to-be president, you'd expect it to be this warmongering kind of crime. But at the end of the day, the law's the law, and if you break the law, no matter who you are, you're gonna get done for it. You know, like it. I feel a bit conflicted about that, because it's a bit like, well, yes, it's not like astronomical, but at the end of the day, like, allegedly he broke the law. So the law has been broken. The justice system swoops in and does its thing to clean it up, I suppose. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one, if I'm honest, Piers.
And for that, they dragged an American president through a criminal court for 2 months when he should have been campaigning for the election. This, I'm afraid, will go down as a sad and shameful and frankly ridiculous day for America. Well, that's my view. Joining me to discuss this is Young Turks founder Cenk Uygur, commentator Vincent Ashana, former Republican Congressman George Santos, and host of the News Agency USA podcast, the gloriously veteran journalist Emily Maitlis. Well, welcome to all of you. Emily, I can see you nodding furiously throughout my monologue there. So off you go. Look, my view, as I said there, is I think of all the 4 cases that he was facing, this was by far the weakest. I think it was a massive stretch to try and turn it into a felony. And I think because of that, because Bragg is clearly such a partisan guy, that it's playing right into Trump's hands to play the martyr, and it will galvanise his base. We saw last night that the funding websites were literally breaking down because people were donating so much money.
I think he raised like $40 million overnight to this donation. Like, it was huge. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I think it was one of the quickest fundraisers ever.
Could this not have the complete opposite effect that at the moment gleeful Democrats hope, which is that it might propel him back to the White House?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, I think. Starting with the end, of course it could propel him back to the White House, and of course his fundraising is likely to have gone up through the roof, skyrocketed since the verdict came out. I think I'd agree with you that it's the weakest of the 4 cases. I think when we first heard the charges from Alvin Bragg, a lot of us were kind of raising our eyes at the number of them, 34. It was actually consistently the same charge, but brought on sort of different dates. And I think that still remains. It is the weakest of the 4 charges, but it is still the one that was before the courts. And it is still the one that was before the jury. And essentially, you're giving us the New York Post monologue, Piers, which I think is that if you decide that the whole thing is rigged, which Trump has been doing way, way before these cases even came to court, way, way before the 2020 election was fought, he's used the word rigged against him the whole time. then clearly you're just going to propel that narrative to a place where you're feeling happy with it. I think that what happened in the court yesterday was that a jury who had been selected independently, gone through the ringer pretty much to assert their nuances and their leanings and all the rest of it, unanimously came to the conclusion that with the evidence put before them, including documentary evidence, he was guilty of those charges. Now, I think America will decide what they do with that. But I think if you're going to start undermining the rule of law, you set yourself against the American people. You set yourself against the people who have decided that they want to believe in the rule of law, even for presidents.
Interesting take. I think that's very... Obviously, it's a complete opposite end of the spectrum to Piers itself. So it's good to see how Piers and this lady have kind of gone head to head here, because Piers is like, no, it was rigged, you know, or kind of going down that route, and it was like the law system is a bit broken. And then this lady's like, well, actually, the law system's there for a purpose, and no matter who you are, you're going to get convicted if you've done something wrong. And then it's like, boom. Let's see how Piers responds.
Okay, Cenk Uygur, you were also not nodding vigorously through my monologue. Here's the point I would put to you on the back of what Emily just said. You know, I remember Bill Clinton having sex with an intern in the Oval Office while he was president. I remember him paying off another woman, I think $800,000 over harassment allegations she made against him. What I don't remember is Bill Clinton, despite all that, ever appearing in a courtroom.
Now, this is something that I believe the Republicans have said against the trial, is that it's kind of one rule for one, another rule for another. And I think they were referencing this Bill Clinton case. And, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not too involved with American politics, so I can't really comment. But that is something that the Republicans have kind of used as an argument against the case.
And being criminally prosecuted. And I think this is the problem that Democrats are now going to face, which is the apparent, obvious double standard. It's not to defend anything that Trump has done. It's simply to say, why is he the one who's been singled out for this treatment, given that Bill Clinton and others on the Democrat side were never treated this way?
Yeah, Piers, I'm bilingual. I speak both populist and establishment. So in this case, I think that both sides have a point, but often misstated. So
this dude's
first
not
of all,
happy.
does the establishment target people that challenge its power? Yes, it does. So it'll go against populist left and populist right. It'll try to do cancel culture. Whenever it wants to target someone, it'll dig and dig and dig. So I've been the victim of that. A lot of people have been the victim of that. But in my case, for example, they dug and found absolutely nothing. So they had to go to jokes from 19 years ago, jokes. So that's when you know someone's as clean as a whistle. But the minute you dig under Donald Trump, just a giant number of crimes spring up because he's a lifelong con man and he's a lifelong criminal. So I think that but at the same time, MAGA has an instinct that isn't wrong. So let me explain that, because the people in the establishment and Democrats can't understand this for the life of them. Look, guys, and MAGA gets a part of it wrong too, which is that Donald Trump actually wasn't going to be charged with any of this stuff as long as he didn't run for president again, even though he did all of these crimes. Taking those top secret documents home is mental. It's insane.
I completely forgot about that. Like when he left the his presidency and Joe Biden stepped in, and there was this whole thing about his like homes and properties getting raided and documents, top secret documents being taken. I completely forgot about that.
Of course, his biggest crime is that he had the false elector scheme to do a coup against America. And in this particular case, did he do this crime? Indisputably so. That's why it was so easy for the jury. And you mentioned that Michael Cohen is a convicted felon. Yeah, he was convicted for this same exact crime. They're co-conspirators. This is a serious case. Falsifying business records. Alvin Bragg, has anybody else been prosecuted?
You're not answering my question, which is why is it one rule applied to Trump, but a very different set of rules applying to Bill Clinton, who committed what I would argue were far worse offences, frankly, than what Trump did in the Stormy Daniels case?
No, Piers, what you're misunderstanding is that there's two different sets of rules for the powerful and the powerless. So the powerless will be will be tried on all these crimes. The powerful are never tried on any of these crimes. What MAGA and you are complaining about is, oh my God, Donald Trump is being treated like a normal person instead of one of the elites. If you're one of the elites, you're allowed to do
I'm sorry to
campaign
push the point.
spying.
I kind of disagree there. I don't think that his argument is that one of the elites is suddenly being brought into question. I think it is strictly the case that's being brought into question. But at the same time, like I said before, if you do the crime, you got to do the time. You know, like no matter who you are, what pedestal you've been put on, everyone has to be treated equally, and that's the whole point of the law system, I suppose. But let's hear how Piers responds.
Violations.
Cenk,
you're allowed to break all these laws.
Cenk,
is
you're
your
not
assumption.
listening. That's not what I'm putting to you. I'm putting to you.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, I'm asking you why Bill Clinton was never put through a criminal court mincer, given what he did, many would argue, was worse.
Piers, no, not even close to worse. That's absurd.
Really?
Look, Piers, yes.
Having sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lying about it to the American people? Paying off Paula Jones hundreds of thousands of dollars to settle a harassment case? You don't think that's at
not
least
illegal.
as bad,
that's
if not
not even
worse?
close to illegal.
Trump had a one-night stand with a porn star 18 years ago. Who cares? He wasn't running for president then.
Of course.
He was a business guy.
Piers, you're not... Okay, listen. Back when Clinton was being impeached, etc., I was a Republican. But as always, I was unbiased. And I said, we started on a real estate deal. It turns out he didn't do anything wrong in the real estate deal. Now we're going into his personal life. And then you dig and dig and say, oh, well, you denied the affair when you actually had the affair. Oh, what was he going to do? Admit it? And I was like, guys, this is a fishing expedition. But what I'm trying to explain to you, Piers, is that if you go on a fishing expedition on Trump, which I think they did, they weren't going to because he was one of the elites. They were going to. Merrick Garland protected him for 2.5 years. The whole time I'm screaming, will you try him already? He tried a coup, you idiot.
All right, look.
And he let him stay there for 2.5 years. But when you go on a fishing expedition with Donald Trump, you come back with a lot of fish. You come back with whales.
Yeah, but trust me,
can't stop
Cenk,
breaking the law.
Okay, but when you go on one with Bill Clinton, you catch a lot of fish too. Let's bring in George Santos.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yes, you did.
You didn't.
Yes,
you
you
said
did.
that he paid off Paula Jones. That's not a crime. That's not even close to a crime.
Okay, clearly not if you're a Democrat.
That's just settling a case.
Okay, so...
Right, so, I mean, I don't feel like Piers Morgan should be hosting this because he is clearly so biased towards Trump within this case. But this is fantastic viewing. Like, this is so... I love the Piers Morgan debates because this is the kind of shit that ends up going down. It never ends civilly. But there is a very interesting point towards... kind of towards the end here where... basically, long story short, we're going to find out what people believe is going to happen with the election. Is the election, like, obviously the election's coming up in November. This is either going to halt and hinder, or this is going to support Donald Trump. This is either, it's going to swing one of two ways. It's either going to propel him into the White House, or it's going to be huge roadblocks for him, and it's going to completely halt his opportunity to the point where it might even end up being a reshuffle in the Republican Party to where they have a new figurehead going for presidency up against Joe Biden, of course. So it'll be interesting to see, but I am intrigued to see how these people view it.
To be honest with you, Piers, if the things that Christopher Wray and Tony Blinken are warning us, because they keep telling us something bad's going to happen, China's here, our infrastructure, unless there's something catastrophic that happens to either Trump or the country to keep people from voting, I think he's going to win in a landslide. And when Cenk talks about, Trump and these documents, Cenk, what about Joe Biden? Joe Biden, same crime, but you know what they say for Biden? He's old. He didn't know he had these documents. And Jack Smith taking photos with the FBI, that case was just dismissed. What do you even talk? Then nothing's going to happen to Trump. I'm telling you right now, he has a chance, and I'm so happy. Think about that, Piers. $50 million in a couple of hours. That's from everybody. The people are fed up with this personality politic BS.
I can't lie. I do think the fundraiser that raised over, well, he's saying 50 million now in a couple of hours, does kind of speak volumes to where the people of America are at. Obviously, if this fundraiser went out and it made $1 million overnight, in the grand scheme of things, considering the scale of America, that wouldn't be too huge. But to generate $50 million, as they're stating here, in a couple of hours, I do think that does speak volumes about the mindset of the American public right now. And it's interesting.
Hank, you just don't like Trump. You never even thought of Trump till he said he was running. You never thought of him. The only time you thought of him was on The Apprentice. Now he's racist, and how's he racist? Nobody believes this. He's
listen,
Hitler. He's racist.
I'm not going to hear Trump criticised for The Apprentice because he chose me as his celebrity apprentice, and that showed a very astute,
damn right, Piers.
very astute
you were
judgment.
amazing on it.
Very astute judgment. Frank, let me end with you. Trump is giving a press conference
was
as I
always a
speak.
con
I think
man,
we
Vinny.
can predict the kind of narrative it'll be. It'll be doubling, trebling, quadrupling down. The money is pouring in.
I think the press conference that is being spoken about is the confirmation one where he basically came out and said that he was obviously going to try and appeal and overturn the conviction.
You've got to assume that that's going to help him in some way. How does this all play out? Where are we going to be in November, do you think?
I think we're going to be such a broken country. He calls himself a political prisoner. There is a definition of who is a political prisoner. He's prepared to use whatever language gets the most attention, gets the most eyeballs. And all the work that we're doing is work to help people disagree better, to find civility, to find unity, to bring people together. And your show and the communication that we had is simply symbolic of how bad things have gotten. And we're going to have you and I are going to have this conversation 6 months from now. And we're going to wonder how we got here. Well, we'll know how we got here, but we're not going to know how to get out of it. And
I know how to get out of it.
I like to think that I'm a patriot, but I'm not sure. I like to think that the American democracy is the best ever. I don't know. I do know that we're sick. I do know that we're divided. I do know that it's toxic. And I know that among people over 65 years old who saw Vietnam, Watergate, oil embargoes, the assassination of Kennedys and Kings, they think this is the worst that they've ever seen in America. I do pay attention to them. I'm going to Normandy. Our young men fought and died for this great democracy. And I think that we have to live up to that. And I'm not convinced that we will.
Wow.
A sad end.
Powerful words at the end there. So, like I say, I'm not too involved with the American politics, so I'm not going to weigh in with my opinion because, frankly, I'm not educated on it enough to have an opinion. But from the sidelines, being on kind of neutral ground, it is very interesting to watch how things pan out over the next few weeks and how things have panned out over the past few days. But what do you think is going to happen? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Should Piers Morgan be ridiculed for his statement, or do you think he's right? And yeah, while you're down there, be sure to jump to get the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you're new, tick on my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload, and until next time, I'll see you in cat. Peace.